as a child growing up. He looked like the perfect son. One time he was playing baseball and it hit the window and it broke it. And I have to say he didn't come ahead and say it was him that did it. He kind of procrastinated about whose fault it was. But I think he had a double personality. He seemed quiet, but he was always getting into little jams.
Being Walter's sister was an amazing journey. A journey of gratefulness, because I feel like he's the reason that I had the best childhood that anyone could ever have. Growing up, there was only the two of us, and I had lots of girlfriends. And they would actually feel sorry for me that I didn't have a sister, because people have this misconception that if you don't have a sibling the same as you, a sister or a brother to match, that it's not great. But he was a great brother, and at times he was a great sister too.
The first time I met Walter was an enchanted Wednesday evening at the Jumbo Lounge in Teal Square. It was Somerville night, and all my friends and his friends would go there to dance. He asked me to dance, and I danced with him. We danced all night, and then he invited me home. And my friend and I and his friend went back to his house. He claims he had never done that before, and he made us tea, and I showed him I could stand on my head. When Walter spoke of his service in the military, it was a very difficult time. He was stationed in Germany, and men were being sent to Korea and also to Vietnam. And probably the happiest day of his life was when the colonel came in and said, "Sorry, Lieutenant Pero, but you're spending the next 18 months in Germany." And we were very happy about that, but on the other hand, I think he had regrets about it. And often when we would talk about Vietnam or programs, the news, the protests, I think sometimes he felt like he hadn't done enough.
My dad's passion was helping veterans, and I don't ever remember a time when he wasn't passionate about that. Because I remember as a kid and learning history, and he would talk about how veterans were treated when they came home, especially after Vietnam. And his advocacy work sort of focused on not letting that happen again to the guys that were now coming home. He never wanted people to feel less than or unwanted or unappreciated. That was a really big thing for him, was that military veterans felt appreciated for the service that they gave to our country.
Walter grew up in Somerville, and he loved the city very much. Even though he didn't attend the public schools, he gave a lot to the public school community in his work with Scale. And but then he found a calling further in veteran services, and a seat became available on the Board of Aldermen, and he thought, well, I can do that. And he went out and he walked the neighborhoods and knocked on doors, made phone calls. Our neighbors did the same thing, and he got elected and reelected and reelected, and it was a pleasure for him to serve because he felt as though he had a voice. He had had a great education. He was a great public speaker, and he could advocate for those who couldn't speak for themselves. And he loved his girls, and they, of course, loved him. But probably the best moments when they were grown and dating and marrying, he would often say, "We're so lucky. Sarah married Jim, a great guy." And then several years later, Emily married Mike, another great guy. But he'd sit back and say, yeah, they married guys like their dad.
My father's legacy is definitely his commitment to service and his commitment to his family. I can personally attest to, I still live in Somerville, so everywhere I go, when I bump into people, there's nobody that doesn't know my dad. I feel that I am perpetuating his legacy by the work that I'm doing and, in a way, sort of following in his footsteps, being a public servant.
I think Walter's greatest legacy was that he never failed at anything. He was a good student. He was a good athlete. He was not exceptional, but he was good. He did things that people dream of doing. He was very ill, and he overcame that. He said, I'm going to run a marathon. He put on his Chuck Taylors and ran when he was maybe 20 years old. Didn't know anything about marathons. And then after he paid that price, he educated himself and ran great marathons, 14 of them. So he always saw the best in everybody and always tried to be the best person himself. And I think he achieved that.